Welcome to Tuesdays with Gary and happy Cinco de Mayo, May the 5th. So we've got a really special program scheduled today, and thanks to Chitachi Egwu, who's our videographer. She's coordinating this effort, and she's in one location. She'll be running slides. I'm also joined today with Eileen Mulkey, who is an appraiser and has been in the real estate business for over 35 years, and she works with me on the Gary Lanham Group team at Coldwell Banker. And we'll be having a lot of fun today. We want to have a lot of relaxed conversation, but we want to talk about what's going on in the environment now as far as how do you deal with COVID-19 lockdown and how do you deal with appraising those homes that are selling. So Eileen, are you there?
I'm here, Gary. Thank you.
Yeah. Welcome. So, so you and I kind of go back a ways. How long have we known each other now?
Oh, just over 15 years, maybe 17, something like that.
So yeah, I remember you when I was first in real estate, and I looked to you as far as how to appraise those really difficult houses. That I remember the Gregorish house in particular, which was on a busy street. It had an amazing backyard and deep water access. And we said, how can we eke the most value out of that house? And you did that.
Yeah, I know the updates in there because they took great care and they did some beautiful finishes in their property. I remember that well.
It's a great house, great family. We still do business with the Gregorish family. So before we start, let me kind of catch up. How are you dealing with the lockdown and how are you dealing with this COVID-19 and how is that affecting your business right now?
Well, the lockdown doesn't bother me. I love my home. I have a lot of things to do around here. I've got some fur babies to take care of, and they're enjoying me being around more. It's a little bit of an inconvenience, going to the grocery store with the mask and the gloves and the whole to-do. And as far as affecting my business, actually, I've been quite busy and steady and taking the necessary precautions to keep our clients and myself healthy and not become a carrier or a spreader of the virus. So, all in all, I do things on a regular basis to keep myself positive and moving forward.
And that's what it takes in this day and age. I mean, we have to kind of approach this with a positive attitude. And that confidence that we have with our mental attitude definitely affects the people we do business with, whether it's a team member or a seller or a buyer that we're dealing with now. So, I mean, if you wouldn't mind, if you could maybe give us a brief introduction of who you are and where you've been in this business and the different roles you've had in the business.
Well, Gary, I really do appreciate you giving me the opportunity to talk about an industry that I'm passionate about. I love the real estate world, and I've been in it my whole adult life. I was first licensed when I was 20 years old as a Florida licensed realtor. 4 years after gaining my license, I dove into the appraisal world, and I loved it. I love appraising. I love the analytical portion of it. I love going to the different properties and dealing with the different people. It's just been wonderful, and I'm very passionate about it, and that's why I'm still here. I can't hear you.
Let me turn that on again. So does it work now?
Yes.
Just wanted to say how grateful I am that you're working with us, the Gary Lanham Group, and how we appreciate what you provide as far as the numerical values of our properties and making sure our sellers get the most money for their listing.
Thank you, Gary. I do appreciate that, and I like to protect people's equity in their home and also the buyers. I don't think people should be overpaying for properties, which I'll talk about a little later in the presentation.
All right, so let's get to it. Let's talk about appraisals and what actions in real estate actually generate an appraisal activity, Eileen.
Well, that's a great question, Gary, because as you know, the whole real estate industry is connected. right? So we have the mortgage lenders, we have the realtors and the salespeople, we have the appraisers, we have home inspectors. Everything is connected. So just a little bit of background about, how and what type of appraisal is needed for a particular transaction. Typically, the mortgage lender likes to do a profile of a borrower, meaning, whether it's a refinance or a purchase. They look for specific things like the credit worthiness of the borrower, the ability to repay the loan, and they also look at the collateral. That's where an appraiser comes in. The appraiser comes in the collateral part, and we usually value that. So depending on where the borrower fits in on that criteria comes the appraisal product that is needed for a specific property.
Excellent. So now we're in the COVID-19 era of selling houses, and we have a lockdown in place and basically a stay-at-home order, yet real estate is considered an essential industry. Are there any special steps or procedures that you have to go through as an appraiser, or that you can instruct customers as well as any realtors that are looking at this that they should pay attention to?
Yes, Gary, that's a great question, because we do have a protocol that was established by the CDC and regulatory agencies in the appraisal industry. We have to follow protocol. So like when I get an appraisal request, I will call the borrower and set up an appointment for the inspection. And the occupant of the property, whether it be the seller or maybe the realtor that I'm meeting, I will have to ask them certain questions. Have you been exposed to COVID-19? Do you know if anybody has been in the property with COVID-19? Are you showing any signs or symptoms of the virus? And according to those questions and the answers, I then tell them my history with COVID-19, whether I had been exposed, or been in a property with somebody that had been exposed. So it's a give, share of information with the keeping everybody safe and healthy as the ultimate goal, And then if all criteria is met there, I do an interior inspection of the property, and I would have my gloves and my mask and booties, and ask the person that is going to be at the property to open all the doors, the drawers, turn on the lights, limiting my physical connection to the property with me touching things and opening things as possible, and ask them to wait outside, keep the doors open if possible. So there's a lot of protection that goes along with doing an interior inspection during this COVID pandemic.
So that's really good to know. So the focus then is that we can continue to do real estate, all parts of real estate, as long as we remember, number one, to protect our customer, and number two, to protect ourselves.
That's right, Gary.
So with these kind of conditions going on, and we know that real estate events happen, life events happen, deaths, births, divorces, people spending too much time with their spouse during this time. They want different or bigger living spaces. Based on these market conditions, are there any specific kinds of appraisals that are requested, and how do you deal with the various types of issues that come up? Do you have to go in every house?
No, we don't. It's not necessary to go in every house. And again, going back to the profile of the borrower and the loan product that they qualify for, will direct an appraisal product. So there's different types of appraisal products. There's the interior inspection that I just spoke about, where the appraiser would actually go in, take the pictures, do the measuring, take interior notes and finishes. And there's an exterior product, which the appraiser would do an exterior visual of the property, not having to go in. We would take pictures of the subject and all the comparables, note the neighborhood characteristics and features, you know, and provide with that maps, aerials, and maybe some third-party photos, maybe something from MLS for the interior of the property. So there's ways and to get the information to the lender that would help to, you know, develop a credible, reliable report, which they can feel confident in loaning on that property. Other resources are public records. Broward County here has fantastic public records on single-family homes. So there's sketches and there's wonderful aerial views and there's front of the subject property views. There's a lot of good information Broward County does provide. That, along with our MLS, gives us, you know, a good idea about the property. Another type is a desktop appraisal. Desktop appraisal, the appraiser doesn't leave the office. We might do phone interviews. We might, you know, have photos available to us from previous MLSs or current MLSs. It should be a competent, geographically knowledgeable appraiser. You know, very important for desktop, because if somebody from out of the area was trying to do a desktop and had never been in that neighborhood, chances are they're not going to be able to get a good feel of the similarities of the neighborhood, maybe, you know, within walking distance to the school, or there's just a lot of different bits that you pick up being in a neighborhood and being knowledgeable of a neighborhood. So the desktop is not too common, but depending on certain criteria, it might be suitable for a transaction. There's another type, it's called the appraisal waiver. That's where there's no appraisal by a state certified residential appraiser performed or developed. Some lenders have interior data that they can develop their own idea of, or value range. There's a lot of tools out there, and this is one of the products that I least like, because buying a home or refinancing a home, or, you know, you have an emotional attachment to that property. And I personally speaking, have not made the best decisions about some of my properties, being emotionally attached to them. So I think a third party, disinterested third party's opinion speaks volumes. It lets you know if you're overpaying for a property. It might point out a zoning regulation that you weren't aware of, maybe the realtor wasn't aware of, that could affect the value. It helps determine highest and best use. There's a lot of information packed in an appraisal that you would not get or be privy to know if you waived your rights to an appraisal. Kind of like goes with, do you really want to waive a home inspection when you're buying a property? You know, I mean, these are hundreds of dollars of reports and inspections, which could lead to thousands of dollars in liability.
That's excellent. I'm reminded of that house that we sold in the corals of Oakland Park, where there was an appraisal waiver. And I was just curious as to whether that was even taking place during the COVID-19 era, but you've kind of explained that, and I really appreciate that. So it sounds to me like everybody should have an appraisal, even if you're buying for cash, just to understand what the value of the market is. Do you want to expand a little bit further on that? I think you had a slide to begin that process.
Okay. Personally, I think that an appraisal is always good information. You know, the more information you have to make an informed decision, I think is better in any avenue, any field of our lives. You know, just because, you know, it's something that might not be necessary based on somebody else's criteria, it might not be best suited for you. So what our industry has done of most recent, I'm not sure if they're going with the appraisal waivers as much as, you know, maybe some walkthrough appraising, meaning guided appraising. So our industry has developed some software that the lender will send to the occupant of the home, whether it be the realtor because it's a sale, or the owner because it's a refinance, the borrower because it's a refinance. It's a software that goes right to their smartphone. They can make it live, and then the appraiser and the our occupant, the borrower or the realtor, do a walkthrough together, just much like we are today. We're having a conversation. We're both in two different locations, but I can ask them, go down into that, that closet or that drawer, or let me see the wainscoting in the tub a little bit closer. I can ask them live to, for areas of interest that I need a little bit more clarification on. And I love that you could do it with Facebook Live, but it also does GPS location so that I know that they are in the house that I will be establishing a value on. So typically,
that's what I was really kind of getting at, because with our smartphones, and they're so daggone sophisticated these days. In my mind, I'm thinking, is it possible for an appraiser to just ask the seller to take pictures of different rooms of the house, the bathroom, the kitchen, etc., and to get it geophysically located so that you, as the appraiser, know that in fact this is the property that you're supposed to be appraising. But what you're telling me is a step above that, where you've actually got the ability now to go in, look at the geolocator, make sure you're in the right house, and actually zero in on the different aspects of what's being reviewed inside the house.
That's correct, Gary. Yes, and technology has proven to be a great tool during this occurrence that's going on right now. Yeah.
So as you do these appraisals, are there anything such as hypothetical conditions or extraordinary assumptions you have to make in evaluating the value of a property?
Yeah, so if we're doing, for example, an exterior evaluation, so an extraordinary assumption is something that's presumed uncertain but is factual. So what does that mean? Since I'm not going to be in the property, it would just be the exterior only. I am not quite sure if, say, an addition that proves through the county public records is a legal addition enclosure, or if it's illegal. Because sometimes county records are lagging, or they were incorrectly added or not added, and a conversation with the homeowner or a physical inspection of the property would help me to determine, the quality, the finishes, the workmanship. So in this particular case, if I was doing an exterior only, and I saw in being around the property, and I saw that there was an addition or an enclosed porch in the back, and I was unable to locate a permit in public records, I would use, I could use an extraordinary assumption that this was done legal, and I can include it in the value of the property, and then make a disclaimer in there saying that if information is provided to me otherwise, I have a right to, revise my opinion, that type of deal.
Excellent. I really appreciate that. So before we continue, we've had a lot of people join us, Eileen. I just want to kind of give a shout out to Andre Lawrence, Ron Racia, Joel Garcia, David Schrock, Mark Martin, Marcello Bull, Bob Ruth, Mark Ketterman, Linda Summers Donahue, Michael Sobel, Joey Wynn, Matthias Hendrickson, Amy Eisman, Tim Kraus, John Johnson, Bob Saul, Taylor Mulkey, Saeed Wolf, Ramon Rayford, Sal Achapini, Marlon Separak, Jonathan Bolivar down in Colombia, Stu Backel in Fort Lauderdale, Bolton Manors, Abel O'Hara, Jimmy Diaz, Russell Everly, Katie Lanham, Tyrone Mendez, Daniel DiCarlo. We've had a lot of people watching us today. So, boy, you really dropped some knowledge on us today, Eileen, and we really, really appreciate that. As we move forward, what can we expect next?
So thank you again, Gary. And I love to share information about my profession and my industry. Knowledge is power. So moving forward, these temporary arrangements or appraisal products are in place until May 17th. That's just a few weeks away. And I think what's going to happen is Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and HUD are going to reassess where we are in our pandemic and move forward with new guidance. So we've got technology, and I really need to say that we have stepped up. The appraisal industry has stepped up and quite fast, as well as the real estate, sales and brokerage side has stepped up with technology. Technology is our friend and has enabled us to continue to serve our clients and keep the wheel turning in the real estate industry.
Well, it certainly has. And it seems like every week, I mean, I remember having my own brokerage, Lanham and Associates, and that was kind of when video was coming of age or beginning to come of age, and of course now everybody's doing video who's doing real estate successfully, and now we've got COVID-19, and now we have to deal with the video, with the appraiser, with the home buyer and the home seller. So we're just taking it lots of different steps farther. So it just demonstrates to me that Yankee ingenuity, as far as if there's an essential job at hand, Americans know how to do it. And we know that every time we successfully sell a home, we actually add 2 jobs to our economy. And what a wonderful mission we have as realtors to be able to help the economy, help people get back to work. And that's what we're going to see as the lockdown, some of the lockdown pressures have eased and people start going into safer spaces, doing business in a more safe manner. But there's always people out there, and I'm going to circle back to what we've experienced, Eileen, as far as people who are doing this business. We now know how to do it successfully. We have some inexperienced realtors out there that maybe don't understand the data. And one of the things that we've experienced is the great shakedown. So you and I have talked about that a lot. Would you mind sharing with the viewers what the great shakedown is like, and why it matters when you're a listing agent or representing a buyer, for that matter, to really understand the data and to be able to stand your ground? And I'm going to lead further with the introduction, is that some of these experienced realtors may not have the savings account, the financial wherewithal to do a strong negotiation with their buyer, with their seller. So it's one of the things that may lead to a shakedown. So with that in mind, Eileen, could you kind of explain the shakedown to our viewers today?
One of my favorite topics. Pretty much, Gary, the Gary Lanham Group, I'm just going to simplify it the way we do it. We show our own listings. So we are at the property. We meet the other agent. We meet the buyers. We go through the property. We share our knowledge, the amenities, all the finishes and features and all that stuff. So we get a dialogue going with the other agent and the buyer, because who knows the property better than the listing agent? So, when you're at the property, you kind of get a feel of what their likes and dislikes are about the property, and you kind of address them. So we had a beautiful property in Hollywood Lakes, and there was not one thing wrong with this property. It was an older home that had been totally remodeled, top to bottom. And when you receive an as-is offer on a as-is contract, Florida bar as-is contract, that's what it is. It's as-is. What you see is what you get. If there's something that comes up in the inspection that is from, the behind the wall, something you can't see, or some safety or health issue that was not visible during your visit to the property, then that's grounds for maybe a negotiation. However, this particular property, they couldn't find anything wrong. So they went after an aged roof. So the roof was aged, but as we walked through the property, I pointed out that there is no water stains on the ceiling. These sellers maintain their property to the nines. I mean, above and beyond. It was such a clean property that we had multiple offers in the first 10 days it was listed. And that tells you that that's a nice, clean, saleable property. So anyway, we get the inspection report, and they're asking for a $20,000 credit for the roof. And, Gary, that sent me through the roof because this house did not need a roof, and they were just fishing. They thought that they would take advantage of the current situation being COVID pandemic, and they thought they would throw a line in the water and see if we bit. And we didn't. We talked to the seller and we told him, what our thoughts were. He told us what his thoughts were. And we went back to the agent, the buyer's agent, with a cancellation of contract because we have had, 3 or 4 showing requests during the inspection period. So the buyer's agent quickly backed down and said, oh, no. We just were concerned and they backpedaled. But we are moving forward with no roof contribution, and the property doesn't have a bad roof. But and you and I, Gary, we don't do our real estate business like that. We educate our buyers and we educate our sellers, and what's fair is fair, and I think that's the way we operate.
So thank you that's such a great example, and we have others. And I think the takeaway, if you're a realtor and you're watching this now, the takeaway for us is that when we feel confident about the numbers and the listings that we represent, we don't go to the seller and say, well, here are your options. You only have one option. You could either pay it or maybe you could split the difference. We go to our sellers and say, is it valid or is it not valid? And if it's not valid, then we immediately generate a cancellation notice of the contract and send that to the buyer, so that when we then speak with the buyer's agent, we say, you know what, I hope you received our cancellation. We are not interested in negotiating any further. So please sign it and send it back to us, because we have a very marketable product and we know that we can get it sold. And that's happened to us now on about 5 properties, and every one of those properties is still in contract and no concessions have been given. And I think that's a real benefit of working with realtors who understand the market, understand the numbers, understand the properties that they sell. And again, it makes a difference showing up for your own listings, knowing the customer, knowing the house, knowing the neighborhood, knowing what the pricing really is in that neighborhood, so that we can best represent our sellers. So I guess moving forward, the one thing we haven't talked about is Fannie Mae. Are there any changes to Fannie Mae that we should know about?
No, but Fannie Mae is very open with their guidance, and the typical homeowner, purchaser, realtor, appraiser, mortgage person can go to the Fannie Mae website and look at their guidance. They issue letters, and I believe the last letter was maybe about a week or so ago, and it might not be pertinent to what your situation is, but something related in the real estate industry. They deal with underwriters, they deal with a lot of different aspects. But the most important takeaway is that come May 17th, they are going to have a new guidance, because none of us know where we're going to be in a couple of weeks. I'm confident we're going to be in a better situation, and that's the way I choose to move forward. We're coming into summer, we're coming into, outdoor activities, and I think we've seen the worst of this, and that's what I choose to believe and move forward. So it's going to be interesting to see what their guidance is going to be on the appraisal products that they have in temporarily effect right now.
Well, thank you so much for that. It's amazing. Here we are in a lockdown situation. Did you ever imagine that you'd be this busy, Eileen?
No. I'm busy now being home and, being out and going to the office. And it's been great, though, because it helps the time go faster. And it lets me work with people that might be uncertain and confused about what's happening going forward. And it has opened up a dialogue with people for that. So I'm grateful, very grateful.
So another thing I've noticed too is that with the people that come to our listings, the buyers that come to our listings, we don't necessarily get the Sunday looky-loos that are coming. The buyers that actually show up, they are intent on buying something. They're not kicking tires. They've got cash in the bank or proof of funds, or they have an approval letter from their bank. It's made real estate a little bit more dynamic in a more concise period of time. One of the things that comes to mind right away is properties that are priced correctly. They go into contract very quickly, very quickly. They don't sit on the market at all, because the consumer who's not been working perhaps or had their hours cut back, all they've been doing is looking on their cell phone, looking at realtor.com, and they're identifying properties they want to review. So when the property hits the market, they know the neighborhood already. They know the houses in that neighborhood that are also for sale, and they go right to their realtor to get a review because they know they've lost out on houses in previous markets, and they don't want to lose out on that opportunity now. So Eileen, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a lot of fun. Are you going to have a Cinco de Mayo?
Shh, I don't tell. Gary, thanks for having me, and I'm really glad to be of service. And, you know, the Gary Lanham Group is available to answer your questions, whether it is our deal or another deal. We just had some buyers buy new construction, and I told them, please ask me questions. I'm here to help you. You know, it's not always about, you know, what's in it for me, but it's about being useful and providing information. And our group has a lot of varied information and lots of years of experience.
Yeah, so I'm almost hesitant to say, but we're in our sixth decade of experience. But we're here to help you, whatever deal you're doing. We've helped buyers and sellers where we aren't the realtors because we're here to be of service to you. So thanks for joining us today. If you have any questions, feel free to give me a call or give Eileen a call. You can always email me. My phone number is 954-695-6518. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to hear what your concerns are about buying and selling real estate in this COVID-19 market, because things have changed, but so has a professional realtor's approach to those changes. Eileen, thank you very much again for joining us.
Thank you.
See you later. And Chitachi, thank you. And we'll see you next Tuesday. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.